Welcome from City Harvey.
Okay. All right. It's been a pretty good 2022, on a number of fronts. The fact that we're kind of winding down on all the COVID restrictions makes my life a little easier, makes public engagement a lot easier. And I think we're going to be getting back to regular city council meetings in a couple of weeks. So that's exciting for me. And then on the, my job title is Director of Economic Development. So we're starting to make some progress on various economic development projects. And we're excited to, next week we have a ribbon cutting for a new metro station with Governor Pritzker going to be in attendance. So that's exciting for us. It's part of our overall effort to improve the physical environment, or the so-called built environment, for the city of Harvey. And of course, broadband is part of the built environment, physical environment that makes it easier for us to be competitive economically. So a lot of it is, to make it easier for businesses to co-invest or reinvest in their businesses. If we're doing our job in the public sector and have good roads, good infrastructure, then they can do their jobs and be more competitive. So that's kind of the big picture. And then we have a specific project, Harvey Lofts, which is going to be breaking that ground. We approved the agreement in January after many months of due diligence. What's interesting about that is it really implements one of the recommendations in our own broadband strategic plan. So that's exciting for us.
Good. So every resident will have access to good broadband as part of the rent. Is that what I've?
Yeah, we're mandating low cost, high quality internet for all the residents. It's not really a huge ask, in my opinion, but it's something that people don't ask for. Cities don't typically ask for it when they're incentivizing redevelopment deals, which they do all the time. So it's sort of a latent tool that's never really been used, as far as I know, until we did it.
Nice. Well, it's interesting because a lot of times internet is part of the rent in the higher rent district.
Right.
For more affordable housing, it's often left behind. So
yeah, and it shouldn't be that way.
Good. Well, thank you for that. Dawn, what's new in Brown County? Welcome.
Thank you. I don't know if I have quite the update that Nick had. So and unfortunately, I don't think anybody else is on from here, is there?
No, I don't see any. I don't see Nick.
Yeah, so I would just say, I know that Adam's telephone was the recipient of one of like round 2 or 3, I believe, but I don't personally have a contact there to know what that project's going to look like.
Okay.
But that would definitely affect our area. I would think at some point, some way, somehow, because they're one of only 2 providers that we do have. And then we do have a downtown revitalization going on right now. So there's been a lot of concentrated effort in that area. And I just attended another meeting last night for that. And so they're going to start construction next week on like phase 2. So that's exciting for our community because Mount Sterling is situated like in the middle of Brown County.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to help draw, not only more businesses, but more people. We also have a new subdivision going up. So all of those things indicate, growth for our area, which is exciting. And with the growth, I think we're going to see, more interest in, I think that not the interest isn't there, but people realize, especially because of the pandemic, how important, the broadband is.
Yeah. Is there going to be public Wi-Fi as a part of your downtown redevelopment?
No, that's something Nick and I have explored. So it's still on my, list to get back to. The issue was finding the right place and the right person to like host the line, if you will. And then
Mhm.
when we did talk to a few businesses or public entities about it initially, they were concerned about possibly having a filter on that. So that was kind of another hurdle we needed to jump through. So
Yeah, and certainly those, a lot of companies do offer that kind of thing, so that, but bunch of kids sitting around on the corner getting in trouble, we don't need that.
right,
That's not
right.
good for anyone. Nick, what did you want to add?
Oh, you mentioned a subdivision. That's interesting. Because that to me is investment. Can you talk about that and whether, what the city's role is or the county's role?
Well, I'll start at the beginning. Mount Sterling is the home of Dot Foods, which is a national redistributor of food products. And so their headquarters are in Mount Sterling. So we're the opposite of what you call a sleeper community, because our population probably, I would say, quadruples every day between Dot Foods and the prison that we have. Like our Mount Sterling itself is only, I think, 1,600 people. So the Tracy Family Foundation, the Tracy family owns Dot Foods, so they make significant investments in the community through their nonprofit arm. So many years ago, they did like a community survey. And so a lot of work that's happening, like with the downtown project, and we're getting a new library this summer.
Wow, that's big.
So they like identify what the needs are. So one of them was affordable housing. One of them was affordable childcare, and then some of these others. So those projects really have all stemmed from that survey and the work that the Tracy family does. So we do have a new daycare that opened last year, I believe, like brand new everything. I mean, it's crazy nice and affordable for families. It's open to everybody, not just those that work at Dot Foods.
So the subdivision, that's for a new residential subdivision, right?
Yes, it's residential. It's like right on the edge of town. So it was easy to hook up to all the major utilities. But through that foundation, I think they're offering I want to say almost $50,000 worth of incentives over like a 3-year period. So they're helping pay people's property taxes, and then they get an extra bonus, an extra amount of money if they're moving from out of the county into that subdivision.
Wow, that's great. That's smart.
Nice.
It sounds like you have some opportunities to influence broadband in terms of, for example, dark fiber if you're building infrastructure to the subdivision. And then also, obviously, what you mentioned, new library through the foundation and new affordable housing. Those are, to me, opportunities, especially the library,
right,
for internet access.
Yes, and we have a really good librarian right now that does, open it up and provide that for people right now with, quite a few computer stations, if you will.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Mary Gay and Dee McComb, welcome from Southwest Leadership Council. What's new there?
Well, there's nothing new here for me. This is Dee.
Well, then we'll turn it over to Mary.
Hello. Yeah, so the biggest thing we're starting to work on is doing a series of, I guess you could kind of call them focus group meetings we're doing a series of 4 with different people throughout the Southwestern Illinois region to kind of bring them together to discuss plans for broadband throughout the region. So the first one's going to be getting ISPs and county government officials in a room together. And then we're going to do education focus, rural interest focus, and healthcare and first responder focus groups. And then once we kind of gather all of that information and kind of the priorities and focuses of all 4 of those groups, we're going to try to do a large regional summit probably sometime next year. So we're starting on those. Those will be in June. I personally am doing some smaller, trying to partner with libraries and nonprofits in the area to do some smaller ACP registration events. So I have one on this Saturday at Glen Carbon Library.
nice.
So
With PTs for people?
no, we're I'm just going in and kind of being someone who could just be there and tell people about it or help them register if they need
Okay.
it. So I'm just trying to do some kind of smaller local outreach
Yeah.
there.
What's been your experience helping people sign up for ACP?
So I haven't done it yet. So this will kind of be the first event will be this Saturday. So
Okay,
I'm hoping for the best and relying on, I've done a lot of research and FCC does have pretty decent information on their website. So it will be more just helping them navigate, like meeting their specific needs in terms of how much help or how much information they need and navigating a computer or whatever. So I'm just kind of
Okay.
there as a person for a few hours and
good. Well,
Yeah.
I understand the details are important when filling out those paperwork, so I'd be
Yeah.
terrible at it, so.
yeah.
Adrienne, what did you want to add?
No, I wanted to ask Mary. Mary, I spoke to a guy named Todd Main yesterday about the project with either Southern Illinois or Chicago State University about mapping farmland, doing broadband mapping on farmland.
Yes.
Are you involved with that? He said Swill was involved. I just wondered whether you were involved.
I'm very, very marginally involved with that. Excuse me, I've been on a couple of the calls and I have some of their initial study from last year. I tried to connect them with, I've been trying to connect them with people at the Illinois Office of Broadband, but the Office of Broadband was super responsive. They have, I don't think, have not been as responsive back to them. So I was trying, because they're trying to get some of the data that they were using for their mapping, for the big mapping project through the
Right.
office. So I don't know where that's gone from there, if it has gone.
Yeah, they finally did talk to Matt. So I spoke with him
Okay.
yesterday. So, okay, good. I will loop back around because I think we should all be very excited about that project, but there's still
Yes.
testing methodology. So this is essentially a mapping project looking at agricultural productivity once you
Yes.
install broadband in unserved and underserved areas. It's a fascinating project.
Well, I'm really hoping to get
Yeah.
as many of the people who are involved in that project at the rural interest meeting that we're going to host. in June.
Great.
And I haven't sent out invites to anyone yet. Like it's still in planning stages within our office. But so if you ask them about, they're not going to know what you're talking about.
If you do get those people in the meeting, will you include me in the invite?
Oh yeah, I'll send you an invite to all four. I'll email you about all of the meetings.
Great, thank you.
All right,
Good.
yeah. So that's what we've got
Mary.
going on.
Thanks, Mary. Lauren, what's new in South Shore?
Boy, oh boy, huh? Where
Good
do
to
I
see you.
start? Hi, how are you? It's like, where do I start? I see that there isn't anyone else from Neighborhood Network Association here on the call. I suppose most of what's been going on here in South Shore is really just this kind of, continuing effort to try to identify what the need is here. And you may recall that a lot of the discussion that we had when we were, coming on these calls, a lot of times had more to do with this idea of affordability as opposed to just access. There was this kind of almost sentiment like, well, we could get the fastest broadband, in the world here, and it's not going to do us any good if people can't afford it. Right.
Right.
And so I think yeah, as I said, that is still something that that is, part of the ongoing work is really just to kind of settle in on and identify the need. Nick, you are a hard act to follow. Let me tell you, if you're talking about like updates, right? Specificity and all the rest of that. I'm sure you folks know that they have broken ground on the Obama Library Center. So whatever was all the back and forth that was going on here in Chicago and on the South Side about it, within the last few years, that's done. And now the Obama Center is going to be a reality. And so much of the, how do you say, energy or just focused or what people are thinking about is, how that is going to impact South Shore, or not just South Shore, but just the surrounding Southeast side, both in a positive and negative sense. And just what it is that we can do to use the momentum for that to deal with a lot of the things that we've got to deal with here, including broadband access. Bill, you may recall, and I guess we've had kind of like the back and forth discussion. Generally, I don't do things on a small scale, right? Anytime I jump into something, I try to get it to scale as much as possible. This slide that's behind me is all part and parcel of that. I'm part of helping to organize we're calling it the Chicago Impact Summit. We're bringing literally, probably they're going to be close to 200 people that come here, maybe 30-40% of them from Chicago, the rest of them literally from around the world. There's people literally, we got someone flying in from London, there's some people flying in from Poland. We're going to be doing online calls with people actually in Ukraine on the ground, connecting them with the Ukrainian community here in Chicago. And what this is all focused on is this idea of trying to bring more investment capital to Chicago, and particularly places like the South Side. And we got some pretty heavy hitters that are going to be coming to this conference, right? It's turned out that this conference has started to go well beyond just Chicago, so we're going to be putting part of it online. I will put into the chat the link to if any of you are on LinkedIn, and if you need some other way to access, but information about it. The event is free. The coming online Zoom, it's free, and there's going to be quite a mix of, you could say, people in the investment community, people who are working in the nonprofit sector, and people who are working like in the public sector, like you folks. And so if any of you have time, you're going to be in downtown Chicago on the 3rd or the 4th, or you've got time to join us online, we'd love to see you.
That sounds exciting.
I'm really excited. Like I say, the idea that we got people flying in from overseas for this,
Are you presenting?
Yes, I'm doing actually one of the features of the event is we're going to be doing a tour of the South Side. Literally going to be piling about 50 or so of them on a bus and coming down and going to various locations, different nonprofits, different enterprises down here. Of course, we're going to drive past the Obama Center, and then on the 4th, the next day, we will be doing a panel specifically devoted to investing on the South Side, which I will be moderating.
That's exciting. Is
Yeah,
NNA doing
I'm
anything with
real
the
excited. What
yeah?
was that? Sorry.
Is NNA doing anything with that affordable connectivity plan program, signing people up for that, or where's that happening in your community?
I'm not sure, like I say, what the the progress on that is. I know that they, how you say, NNA, because of their capacity, they're trying to find, you could say, one of their members to take that over. And as like I said, I think they were in the process of putting together what was the term that they were using for it? But it's the material that they're going to be using to present to the rest of the community. And as I said, ongoing work really just to figure out and try to identify what the need is here.
Okay, good. Well, thanks for that update. Thanks for joining today. Let's hear from Marty and Rosanna and Flanagan. They're probably got all kinds of spools of fiber optics now sitting on corners there. What's going on?
We're getting close. Last you heard, I think, from us, we had won the round 2 grant We submitted a round 3 grant. So we're waiting to hear back from the state on that. Round 2 just didn't cover what all the expenses that came up. So we're waiting on that, hoping to break ground on that fall at the earliest. But we are also looking into the ACP program with our partner Metro Communications. We are responsible for some of the signups and stuff like that. So they are, I think, involved right now with the ACP or signing up. So we're going to be doing that. We're also looking at another grant for revitalizing downtown. It's called the RISE grant. It's a research in Illinois to spur economic recovery. That's just a planning grant, but we're hoping to get some of that grant money to revitalize downtown. So
Good. So your bids came in pretty high. Is that what I'm hearing on your
yeah,
initial plan?
yep. I don't
Okay.
know the exact number, but we submitted. So the plan is, I guess, with Metro is to not accept that round 2 grant and just go for the round 3. I know there's less restrictions and stuff on that, but the grant was just over $1 million, the asking sum. So
Mhm. Okay, well,
Sorry, can I just clarify that? Marty, you're saying that what did you get for the round 2 and you're asking for another $1 million in round 3 or the other way around?
so round 2 was 292, I believe, we rewarded. The plan, I guess, with Metro is to not accept that round 2 and just go for the $1 million, just over $1 million that they asked for in round 3. So
Great. Okay, thank you.
yep.
is that for the same geography or an expanded geography?
Same.
Ouch.
Yeah, they were a little off.
Huh.
The problem with the original submission was related to funding employees,
Yeah, prevailing wage.
prevailing wage.
Mhm.
So the company didn't take the state as its word by figuring prevailing wages. So they went back and figured prevailing wages and then resubmitted.
Okay. Yeah, it's important to recognize what the rules are when you apply for things. So
Yeah, they thought they had a workaround, but there's no workaround. You have to do it. So the rules in the third round did not require 50% matching funds. So it was more flexible in the matching fund area. So that was what made the second one viable for the provider.
okay, sounds good. Well, thanks for that. We've got a good representation for Mercer County on. Kyle, you're our ICC leader, and we have Cassie now, our Accelerate leader. And I see Al as well. So Cassie, do you want to give us an update?
Oh, sure. I was here as a guest. Al invited me to join.
Oh.
But thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. The biggest update here in Mercer County as it relates to broadband is sort of the evolvement of the broadband work and how it relates to our county board. And so just for official title, I'm the county board's community development consultant. And so one of the things that they saw, through community input back in 2016 with my work with Mercer County Better Together and Kyle and I's work together in the forums, and then our most recent work gathering sort of a refreshment of community input, broadband rose to the top as one of the top categories So it was definitely a category of interest 6 years ago. And then, as I'm sure is the same for all communities, it rose to the top in light of the last couple of years. And so the county board has recognized, you know, the importance of it, not only for our community, but how the state of Illinois is really kind of picking up on that and how it's crucial for local.
Oh,
Satellite
Kathy
zapped,
froze.
The involvement of the leadership of Broadband coming under the county board, and sort of them, you know, the county board realizing that, hey, it's time for us to step in and be the leaders in this. And so we're participating in Accelerate as sort of that first step. And out of that program, we're hoping to have a really strong strategy plan, a clearly identified team for broadband in Mercer County. So we have 10 really committed community partners and individuals and leaders from Mercer County that are participating in Accelerate that, you know, may or may not stay on the core team as we move out of the program, just, you know, as the strategy plans develop and evolves. And so we're, as you know, Bill, at the last few weeks of that work, and really excited to kind of dive headfirst into what happens next and where our strategy plan is going to take us.
Good. Well, if anyone wants to see a great example of a detailed plan, Cassie's got it. So
Thanks, Bill.
Kyle,
Sometimes I'm detailed to a fault, but you know, maybe perhaps it works in this line of work.
it certainly does. Kyle,
Thank
any additions from your past chair of the ICC group?
Hi, Bill, and everyone. Thanks for putting this together. Cassie did a great job capturing what we're doing now. I think it was a perfect lead-in from the work we did with ICC into this, and all the prep, the data gathering, the capacity building, not only helped us build a team, but also helped us have a better understanding of what we didn't know. And we continued to learn that through Accelerate. So yeah, without getting into the weeds of it, lots of areas we began to dive into during Illinois Connected Communities, which I think was the intent of ICC to begin with. Just like all of us, the state continuing to basically evolve on how they think broadband planning can and should work in and without relationship to funding to get projects done. Accelerate comes along as an opportunity. The county board takes the lead on that, and they've done a great job paving the way for us to go forward with that program. But Accelerate was able to take a lot of the work that we had done from Illinois Connected Communities and take it to the next level, get a next level deeper with filling gaps. And as we've said several times in our work teams here, this project is a monster. Even for a small community, a county of 15,500 roughly, it's a big project, even if we only get one, I'll call it sub-project funded. All the prep work, all the readiness, all the building of capacity, figuring out all the different avenues we can be exploring for funding and what those individualized processes are. This is not anything you can take and finish in a couple of bites. It's an elephant, and it takes about 8,000 bites to get there. And luckily, we have a strong work team of people who are good at complementary roles in our team. And I'm really proud of the Accelerate team and how we've come together. And yesterday is a great example, and Bill was on this call with us, with Cassie leading and Bill giving guidance, and the team having good conversations and taking those roles in work that needs to be done to move our entire strategy plan forward. You know, we had the strategic plan that was the deliverable of the Illinois Connected Communities process, but I would venture to say this takes it much deeper and is a nice build on what we did accomplish through ICC, but also make it more real and competitive for funding.
Great, thank you. Al, anything else?
Yes, so I just want to talk about three things that occurred and really due to the pandemic, but part of the work around connected communities around adoption and use. So we had an entrepreneur who had opened up the high-tech small town center, whose goal was to bring Fortune 500 jobs to a rural community, but work remotely out of the center that has fiber. That pilot is working. And I will ask Kyle to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think there have been 4 employees for Fortune 500 companies who are now located there, and maybe 1 or 2 in the growing. Kyle, is that right? 4 or 5?
I believe we're at 5.
Okay, so that's continuing on. Secondly, right across from where the high-tech small town center is, there's going to be an approximately $12 million workforce development housing complex, which was one of our old junior high buildings. And so that facility will have high-speed broadband to all of the, I'll call them apartments, and to the community center that will be attached to that. And then the third, and I just want to speak to this from the healthcare side of things. So during the pandemic, we were able to shift to much of our healthcare doing telehealth. Well, as a priority, we have chosen to ask each of our patients now how many of them wish to continue that kind of work with their medical providers. And so we have seen a large continuation of individuals who want to use that, and particularly figuring out ways to assist seniors in that access to healthcare. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Al. And then I see Carlos on the call. Welcome, Carlos.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for letting me join the call. I'm still actively participating in the Matching the Motion Broadband Coalition, and I'm just in the process of finishing up a grant opportunity through List Squirrel, where we supported the procurement of about 20 laptops via PCs for People, and provided them to needed families and individuals in this community. So access to technology is one of the goals that we wanted to tackle, and we're slowly doing that. As the gentleman said, that it takes about 800,000 bytes to chew off this mission. That's kind of exactly how I feel at this moment in time. Every small step is a step in the right direction for its equitable adoption, use, and access and utilization of the technologies that we're trying to bring to these rural communities. I just want to be here and be supportive of all the hard work that everyone's doing, and making sure that we have a voice at the table still.
Great, thanks, Carlos. Any word on Consolidated's upgrade of their network?
I can't speak on that right now, but I do think that they're doing that within this community. The last I heard, they're making a plan forward, and that's all I got right now.
Okay, well, keep their feet to the fire. That's what I recommend. It's easy to make promises and then, give excuses. So that I think they moved in response to the community's organizing, and letting them know you're still watching is sometimes required.
Very true.
And welcome, Paul Tuttle. Paul, you're on mute if you're with us.
Sorry about that. Yeah, ironically, I'm having some connectivity issues, so you'll have to forgive me. Just wanted to pop in as a representative of PCs for People, and acknowledge so many of the folks on this call that have helped both in the collection and distribution of the PCs that we provide. And just want to express gratitude for the partnerships that we have with many of the different entities that are represented here. So happy to answer any questions, but I'm really just here to kind of say thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for joining, and you definitely have some connectivity challenges today, which is always a motivator, right, for our communities.
I just want to ask this, Paul, I don't know if we've ever met, but are you related to the Tuttle that created the Hushaphone on AT&T that was back in the 1920s? Shot in the dark.
I have no idea. It doesn't sound familiar, but I
Okay.
guess it's possible.
It was kind of a famous entrepreneur that used a device that came up with net neutrality because they tried to basically like alter the end communications, and it was a whole big thing. And I just recognized the name Tuttle because that was the name of the gentleman, and it was used in the movie Brazil as kind of a nod to that.
Right.
So yeah.
Yep.
Anyway,
I may have to look that up. I don't know.
Please do, and get back to me if it's a long lost relative.
Paul.
None of the money has
Yeah.
passed down to Paul, it doesn't sound
I
like.
was
Yeah.
gonna say, Robbie, that is about the most obscure thing. You do have somebody from Region 1 here. Where's Nancy McDonald?
Very quickly, Paul, I just put in the chat a link. Is this your group, pcforpeople.org/Illinois?
Yeah.
That's him? Okay,
That's
thanks.
correct.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Well, good. Welcome,
And let me
Nancy.
just add one thing quickly, if I could. I am actually, we continue to grow. We're growing nationally. And so I actually have been transferred virtually to Atlanta, where we're growing a new set of offices and working to be a key provider there in the Atlanta area. Lauren Williams is the local contact for PCs for People. And I can put his contact info in the chat as well.
Lauren,
I'm always happy
you
to,
said?
but
Lauren Williams.
Please put it in the chat. Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say to
Got
have the same first names. There you
Okay, literally, I mean, I almost do backflips whenever I meet another male named Lauren that spells his name the way I do. I
And he
definitely have one of
does.
those boy named Sue.
That's all right. I'm a girl named Adrian, so I understand. Okay, Nancy.
Hey, welcome. Thank you for letting me sit on the meeting today. I'm actually sitting in for Heather Snyder. She's my supervisor here at Rock Valley College, and I'm actually new to the college. I've been brought on as the grant coordinator, so super excited to get into it. But I'm very new. I've been on the job here for a couple weeks, coming from the city of Janesville, working in economic development. But listening to everyone speak about broadband, I'm kind of excited because one of the things that I did up north there, was extend our fiber backbone down to one of our business parks through a grant program that was offered through the state. So certainly that's, I know that through some of my meetings that I've had on campus here that, connectivity is very important to us, and certainly on a regional basis, we want to partner where we can. So any opportunities that we can participate and build those and make our fiber and connections available to the public, we'll definitely support those. So again, thank you for allowing me to sit in today and meet all of you.
Good. And Nancy, just for your information, it was the Region 1 Development Commission folks that really led is kind of the city of Rockford and that county effort. So happy to have you on board, and it's one more source of expertise in that region. That's great to hear about.
Excellent. Yep.
Good. Thank you. I'm now going to
Thank
call
you.
on Robbie Macbeth. I think we hit everyone. Dia, you feeling left out? You want to say anything more about what's going on with mapping or data or your efforts with the Leadership Council?
Actually, the one question I had is I'm only on here because I was helping oh my gosh, what's her name? And helping you all, but I haven't heard anything from my side of leadership as far as continuing on with it. I'm just hanging on with it to keep, update on it and see what's going on with it and how far people have succeeded in it.
Okay, well, sounds like Mary needs to reach out to you, Dee, and give you an update.
Okay.
Are you on the Leadership Council Broadband Steering Committee email?
I think I am. I've been getting the meeting invites. I've been getting the meeting invites, and that's about it.
I mean, to be honest, that's all that's been happening with
Okay.
the wider group.
Okay.
But I can email you and discuss some other stuff that's in the works if you want me to.
Okay. Like I said, basically from my leadership, I was setting in because there was someone else who's basically in a higher position than me who was actually sitting and giving high level briefings about things. And I was just, low man on totem pole doing the big work, like, when I was doing the data analysis and all of that.
Dee's a whiz with Excel and mapping, so good. Well, I'm glad to hear your voice, Dee. Thanks for joining.
Oh, yes, yes.
Well, now I'm going to turn it over to Robbie. He's going to talk about the ACP program and maybe some federal broadband funding resources as well. Welcome, Robbie.
Thank you, Bill. Let me just try to share. I've been having more and more difficulties with Zoom and PowerPoint. Are people able to see?
Yes.
This?
Yep.
Are people still able to see this? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
We're looking at the resources slide.
Oh, see, hold on.
There we go.
Okay.
Now we're good.
Okay. So I was working on this PowerPoint and then my computer crashed, and that was the reason why I was a little bit late. So I had to quickly assemble this. So it's not going to be in the most, presented information, but I think the idea is just to kind of touch on these things. And then the final slide has some resources. So Bill asked me to just briefly talk about the Affordable Connectivity Program. That I think could be a really, when we were dealing with round one, it was still in the emergency broadband benefit realm, and it was still kind of in the aftermath of the pandemic, and a lot of the legislation was still being written and the rules being decided. Now the dust has kind of settled on this program, so it's become the main affordable benefit to reduce the price of internet subscriptions for low-income households. It's kind of become the premier program at the federal level. And so we're really encouraging people in Illinois to take advantage of this program and to help people sign up for it. So the main point is on the screen here. The idea is it's a $30 per month benefit that can be applied to any internet service subscription plan. This means sometimes that subscribers will pay nothing if the price of the plan is $30 or cheaper. Very frequently there's affordable decent plans for around $50, and so with the benefit it ends up being a $20 per month cost for families receiving the benefit. So really the idea is it's just kind of opening up access for families and individuals with lower incomes, and providers are incentivized to take advantage because they get the money directly from the federal government. So there's no kind of issue. The idea is like the more people that they sign up, the better financially they are. So we've been working particularly through the Illinois Broadband Connections newsletter, which I hope everybody on here subscribes to. And if not, message me, or after this, I'll put a link in the chat. But we've been trying to kind of gather some stories that people are having in figuring this stuff out. And the main point being, when you're working with populations that would qualify, often they don't have a computer or broadband access to do the application. So it often means going to community centers of some kind to get assistance. So that's why we've really been trying to work with libraries, but other community anchor institutions in your communities that can have some people on hand and ready to help people sign up. I just spoke with a woman from the Chicago Housing Authority last night. They said they're getting to the point where they're able, because they've been doing it so frequently with people that are in low housing or low cost housing, public housing situations, that they can do it over the phone when people call them. So getting in touch with different organizations in your community that assist people with lower incomes, just kind of including this benefit as part of things. So any organization in your community that's working with the supplemental nutritional assistance program, the SNAP program, also known as food stamps, low income housing, veterans benefits. There's a larger list that I'll provide at the end of this presentation about the eligibility requirements. But the point is, everyone here could kind of be working in some capacity around connecting those who qualify. And that seems to be a major piece with the affordability leg of the stool that we're talking about with digital equity. I'm going to leave it there. Bill, is there any other questions or things that you would want? I have more on this presentation, but just as far as the ACP, are there any questions, I suppose, that people have on this call?
Robbie, do you want to talk a little bit about the challenge, this one device and benefit per household, the importance of choosing wisely?
Yeah, so this part is a little bit confusing, admittedly, the $100 off of a device. And the idea behind it is that you do it with the provider that you're getting the ACP from. And there's been a little bit of confusion because a lot of cheap cell phone providers are sort of kind of getting into the scene with that. And those are actually technically not eligible devices. And so they're kind of skirting the rules and doing this sort of thing. So it's best to work with established providers and people that you have a relationship with, whoever the dominant internet service providers are in your area, your community, working with them because you can ultimately sign up for ACP through providers. And so making that connection is the best. And so the idea is just that with some of these programs, providers will offer heavily discounted devices such as laptops, tablets that don't have cell service, those being the main things, so that people can have devices in addition to the connectivity program. I think that makes, so an example would be if Comcast offered the device program, you would have, as like a library, for example, if you knew Comcast served your surrounding area, you would establish a relationship with Comcast, send people there to apply for ACP, and hopefully they can communicate with a Comcast rep to get that $100 discount on a device. There's more information because there's a lot of kind of particulars, and that is kind of more of a source of confusion, whereas the $30 off plan is kind of like the main part of it that we're excited about reaching consumers across Illinois.
Is there a vendor neutral flyer that exists? Because I've seen flyers, but they're usually from a particular vendor.
Yeah, so I don't think I have it on this site, but if you go to the FCC's page, they have a bunch of, they have like a whole outreach resource toolkit. So if you just Google, like, I can kind of get that link to you directly, but like FCC outreach toolkit, they have links of flyers, newsletter templates in English and Spanish about how to apply and all those sorts of things.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. And Rosanna beat you to it. So
thank you.
She's all over that. So great.
Yes, consumer outreach toolkit. Thank you. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, the stuff is there online. I think it's mostly, I'm just using this time to kind of explain. Any other questions before I move on to other things about ACP or other things in this program?
So Robbie, this is Al, just a quick question. It is both one device and one benefit. It's not an either or.
Correct. Well, it can be a both or either, or like it can be benefit and device or just benefit. Does that make sense? Per household.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Free and reduced lunch is another huge one. So schools should also get involved in that scene as well, because I think with the homework gap, there's, a lot of times schools almost feel like their hands are tied if families can't afford or choose not to afford. So making them aware of this program and kind of doing the work on that end can be huge. And so we've seen a lot of enrollment that way as well, with the access of schools and school administrators.
Robbie, a question from Flanagan. when purchasing a new device, is it a reimbursement or how does that?
I don't,
discount?
off the top of my head, I don't remember it, but I do remember it being something like you had to put forward a little bit of money and then you got it. But I'll try to figure that out. And maybe actually at the end of this, when I present some of the resources, they might be on it. I'll just jump to that page real fast. So as far as the affordable connectivity program, there's 2 links at the very top that I put there. So there's a PDF explainer. And so let me see if I can, nope, I was going to try to just copy them. Let me do this right now and put them in the chat. Oh boy, let's see if I can figure this out. Here we go.
Robbie, I'll do this for you.
Okay, there you go. So I'll go back to the presentation. But yeah, just the idea that those resources will have more information, particularly about the device eligibility. To be honest, we haven't gotten much feedback about that aspect of the ACP. I don't know if that's because people already, have their thing and they're mostly focused on getting the subscription and that they're running into trouble with it. But there's been less interest or questions, I guess, around the device portion.
Hey, Robbie.
Yes.
I think another thing it could be is when I was looking at like area providers in my area down here, like maybe 1 or 2 actually provided that discount and not even, and they weren't any of the like kind of big players, which drives me crazy that the big organizations with the actual money to do that refuse to. But like AT&T doesn't, around here Spectrum doesn't, I don't think Verizon does. So down here in Southwestern Illinois. So that's another reason you probably haven't gotten feedback, is like 2 providers actually provide the discount.
Yeah, and I'll have to see, because there's I don't know if it's the FCC or the whatever the organization, USAC. Yeah, they have that list of providers in Illinois, and it
that's
also
what
shows.
I was looking at and finding that very few provided that $100 discount.
Yeah. So honestly, I think for people on this call, like finding out any of the providers in your area that do offer it and kind of making a connection there, but then also kind of even more of a shout out to an organization like PCs for People, who also offer at-home Wi-Fi hotspots for $15 a month. And I'm not sure what their involvement in the ACP is, whether or not they're contributing that as well and making it free ultimately. So that, I don't know if anyone can answer that question for me, whether or not.
Pretty sure they do, just from what I've heard, is that they provide it well, they already have discounted like computers and stuff, and obviously, and then they basically make it free to get that Wi-Fi.
Great. So yeah, so that's a great example of what they were doing, which was offering a Wi-Fi hotspot for $15. And then if you qualify for the ACP, that becomes free. In addition to PCs that they can offer. So definitely things to look into for the ACP, and getting in touch with, like I said, particularly libraries or anybody that has that digital navigator program. That seems to be one of the more successful areas of enrollment, kind of an enrollment site in people's communities.
By the way, Robbie, I think Shubika's put a very good and thorough explanation into the chat that everybody should look at.
Yes, great.
Thank you, Shubika.
Yeah, there are resources galore out there. I think it's really just a question of, I think the harder work is establishing those relationships with providers. And if you establish a good one, you can just kind of, send consumers in your local that's kind of the power of local knowledge. If you know who the people are that could qualify and send them to providers, I think that's really the greatest good that can happen for people on this call. Okay, any other questions on ACP? The funding is still there. I think there was like 9 billion or something initially earmarked. So that is another welcome relief from when in round 1, we were always talking about the emergency broadband benefit program, which was the more COVID emergency response. That was a limited time thing that has evolved into the ACP, which is a much more long-term
14 billion actually to start. And now there's, I don't know what's left, but that's what the start of the program was. And they have 11 million people signed up. But I have to say, one of the big challenges is not a lot of new subscribers, just people who currently have service taking advantage of the discount.
Great
So I
point.
think it's 95% of people taking advantage of the discount who already have service. 5% are only new subscribers. And this is why communities and community-based organizations need to get involved, because right now what it is just providers getting that, you know, payback from the government rather. So anyway, an important distinction.
Adrian, would there be any tip or whatever? I mean, other than just, you know, quote, getting the community organizations involved. I mean, is there any, what would you suggest would be the way to kind of get more people to sign up or to encourage more people to sign up?
Well, I mean, honestly, I think it's about delivering information succinctly and clearly, A. B, I do think it's about trusted community organizations facilitating sign up. There's a suspicion, you know, whether it's, you know, free or a discount, you know, I think there's, particularly in communities of color, Lauren, you know this, there is, I think, Chicago Connected found that lots of people didn't believe they were getting their internet paid for.
Yeah.
So it took that intermediary to come in and say, yes, this is in fact a free program. So, you know, I think it's a combination. I do think that there has been
what's the catch, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. That's the catch. Exactly right.
The other thing I would say is in person can really help
Right.
increase that trust. So having like what Mary Gay is doing on the enrollment events at libraries can be a really great way to get people to then come and
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. These digital navigators are proving to be very valuable, right, resources for people, because in person works a lot better than over the phone, or, you know.
That's the word I was looking for of the thing that they're trying to put together here in South Shore, the digital navigator.
Right. Digital navigator.
And one of our groups in round 2 of Illinois Connected Communities is an organization out of Summit, the Latinx Digital Leaders Now nonprofit, and they've been kind of specifically writing grants to get funding for digital navigators, specifically to get trained to do enrollment for the Affordable Connectivity Program.
Yep.
So that can be another area when you're thinking about either applying for grants or just sort of like a natural thing that can be done to help increase adoption. Okay, which leads to something I just wanted to touch on. This might seem overwhelming. This is another resource that we're going to be including at the end, which is just the people at Common Sense put together a really large federal broadband funding opportunities matrix that's color-coded by the major pieces of legislation. So it kind of happens every 6 months or so. So in March 2020, there was the initial coronavirus CARES Act, and then ARPA happened, the Consolidated Appropriations Act happened in November of 2020. And then in March of 2021, we got the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA. And then most significantly, I would say, for the work that is currently ongoing was November of this last year, which was the bipartisan kind of Biden infrastructure thing known as the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA. So if you click on this resource later, this federal funding broadband opportunities chart, you'll see a lot of the different programs. And so we just wanted to include this in here for people that are, just wanting to see kind of where things are included and what's available. So I don't know if you can see my cursor at all. Oops. But the Affordable Connectivity Program is listed here with the, kind of type and the amount and the organization that's running it. So that's what we were just talking about. You'll notice on the right, there's also resources here featuring a lot of Benton analysis of that we've been writing around each of these aspects. And so I just wanted to make sure people were aware of some of the other broadband funding opportunities and programs out of IIJA, which are these digital equity competitive grant programs, these state digital equity capacity grant programs, and these BEAD funding. So you can see block grants to states, and then this digital equity competitive grant program. I don't know exactly what the timeline is yet, but this is all new stuff, which is around organizations doing digital equity work and working. I think the idea is states are ultimately able to get money to help write digital equity plans, which was a big part of this legislation, which is just this idea of like the, US Congress passed this law that said we want every state to have a digital equity plan. Illinois is ahead of the game, I would say, compared to other states, but it's just this idea of like everybody should kind of be prioritizing this. And then there is also this money that NTIA is not handing out, but awarding in terms of grants for entities doing digital equity work. I don't have as much information yet as I should about that, besides that's kind of the hot topic in the digital inclusion space, is just this idea that for the first time, there's federal money that will be available to kind of continue digital inclusion work with certain nonprofits and organizations. So this is all upcoming because states kind of have, I think the general timeline is they want states to write plans and then have these organizations kind of carry out a lot of these things with extra funding provided.
So Robbie, I heard from NTIA that the notice of funding opportunities for the middle mile program, which is the billion, the DEA, which is the right there, yes, that, and the BEAD are coming out on May 16th.
Okay.
So that is when those notice of funding opportunities, so you see there, it says under timeline, NOFO likely to be end of May, but they told us it was May 16th. Okay. Yeah.
Which I know this is a lot of information coming at you, which is all to just say that there is going to be more funding. So staying connected to what's happening in Illinois, particularly the Illinois Broadband Connections newsletter, is a great way to possibly take advantage of some of these funds, or just to recognize who are some maybe larger players in the surrounding areas that are doing this type of work, so that if a university or something gets a large fund to do digital navigators program, tapping into that sort of thing.
Robbie?
Yes.
This is Al. So last week, the White House came out with the bipartisan infrastructure for rural communities only, called the Rural Playbook. So it took each of the infrastructure projects. So like the BEAD program, it had specific information for rural communities. Have you seen that? And are you aware that I see, Adrian, you're shaking your head?
I'm not aware of anything recently. This was like in the last week or so. I assume
Yes,
it was
just
in our
last
headlines.
week to be exact.
You know what, Al, if you have a link to that, that would be good to drop into the chat for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
The playbook I saw, I thought was designed to kind of target it at the states. Was that from the Fiber Broadband Association, or is this a different playbook?
This was from the White House.
Okay.
And again, it said bipartisan infrastructure, and then here is the Rural Playbook. And again, what made me think of that, Robbie, when you showed us the BEAD thing, you went to the one link and then you went to the specifics on their website, and kind of what they portrayed was even the current match requirements can be changed on a few of these for rural communities.
That's right, here it is. Biden administration releases Rural Playbook. I see this, thank you very much.
So Adrian, could you just go ahead and put that link?
I will. You bet, I just found it. Love Google search.
So interesting, we received that through the Illinois Hospital Association. And so I wasn't aware how broadly that was distributed. But here in Illinois, we had all of the folks from rural development, transportation, and the other folks who were on that call. So they provided a webinar to each state from the White House.
Yeah, actually, I was invited to this and I couldn't make it because this is Mitch Landrieu and it's broader than broadband.
Yes,
So
it
it
is.
really was looking at all infrastructure, right? Because this bill is wider. We got 65 billion in broadband, but everything else, you know, there's so much more. Right. And Mitch Landrieu, of course, former mayor of New Orleans, who of course rebuilt the city after Katrina, is the coordinator for everything. But thank you very much, Al. That's a
Alvin, how did that come through the American Hospital Association? I asked that only because my father worked for AHA for 25 years, and I couldn't imagine them being involved in anything that would intersect with.
So Lauren, the only thing I can say about that is, so we're an Illinois critical hospital. So it may have come from the smaller hospital associations versus all hospitals, Lauren. Because again, it was really directed to rural only.
You know, it's funny as I look at the playbook, you know, they essentially, it's kind of the same paragraphs that were in Robbie's handout from Common Sense, those paragraphs describing the program. So I don't know if it's a playbook as much as a inventory kind of activity. So it
okay.
Good.
Thanks, Robbie, for letting me interject that.
No, absolutely. So I real quickly, I just opened up some of the resources that were in the final slide that will be emailed out to everybody, just so people can kind of be made aware. You can kind of like Google these sorts of things, or someone else wants to put them in the chat. So as far as this, to me, is the best ACP resource that we found, put together by our friends at the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. There's a slide deck that you can open up that I kind of previously showed, but they also have all these kind of questions and answers things that people have been adding to, that they've been experiencing across the country. So if you have really specific questions about that sort of thing.
Robbie, let me just say, I might point out that the Q&A are coming from groups on the ground trying to implement and work on this program. So it points out all of the challenges and tries to get people, for instance, we found out that if your government ID or how you enroll in the program includes your middle initial, but you fill out the form without the middle initial, your application gets thrown out. So it warns people to come to make sure that your paperwork matches in every respect. I mean, it's just that kind of stuff that people are finding out on the ground that gets talked about in this. That's why it's such a great resource.
Yeah. And we're, like I said, we're trying, if anybody on this call experiences anything, feel free to email me. We're kind of trying to keep track of, you know, like I just said, I had a conversation the other night, and there was, you know, a lot of people are doing it through Comcast, but you need to have your account and password kind of handy, and that can be a really difficult thing for people to remember and to find and to access. So just kind of that sort of prep work is really important for some of these things. So yeah, I think it's an ongoing kind of nationwide effort to make it more fluid and easier. Yeah. Transparent. Yes. All that sort of thing. And there's an ongoing FCC docket around improving it, because they're also kind of starting to do nationwide outreach more seriously, which I'm pretty sure providers have to contribute to in some way. So I think this is ongoing.
You can also request a speaker from the FCC if you're doing like community training stuff, doing like train the trainer kind of stuff.
Oh, that's great to know, Mary. Thank you.
It's on their website, and I think it's with the outreach information as well.
Yeah. That link that was shared earlier. this is hot off the press today that we got, I believe, which is the National Skills Coalition put together this kind of fact sheet and a blog and a subsequent blog post about what state and local skills advocates need to know about this funding. So when I was mentioning that stuff before, I don't know how well people can see this. I don't know if that's better. But this stuff before is what I'm talking about in terms of digital equity planning grants, and then competitive grants to state and other eligible entities such as nonprofits for a range of digital inclusion. So this stuff, like Adrienne had mentioned, May 16th is what we're hearing for the notice of funding opportunities, I think, or NOFO, yeah. So that's that side of things. Bill wanted me to, this was another link, which is amalgamation of all the different funding opportunities that we've kind of gone through. This is from Joanne Hovis with CTC Technology and Energy. So she presented at the Accelerate meeting in April. And she kind of goes through in depth on all these sorts of things that we've been talking about. So this Digital Equity Act was what I was just referencing to in the previous thing, just to kind of get people familiar so you can kind of go through these. Explaining this stuff is kind of in our wheelhouse and it's very confusing and there's a lot of timelines. And so, but Joanne is kind of an expert on some of this stuff. So I recommend going through.
And
there's a lot of slides there, a lot of details.
Yeah.
yes, so Robbie, this can be found on the Illinois Extension website, am I right?
Possibly.
Yes.
Bill? Yes.
Well, I think you really need the link. I looked today for it on the website. I couldn't see it. So, but the link that went out to all the participating communities, it was there.
And this link is on the last slide of this PowerPoint that will go out to folks. But this was.
So you are going to send this because this is very rich, but you have to look at it where it lives.
Yeah. And then lastly, this just came out today, which is NDIA's Digital Inclusion Guide for States, going through the Digital Equity Act. And so this is the timeline that we're kind of talking about of what people plan on doing with all these sorts of things. So just kind of keeping yourself, and you can download a copy here, which I'm really annoyed because it goes to save and not a hosted PDF. Okay, it doesn't seem to be working on there it is.
It is. Oh gosh, that is.
Now I clicked. Yeah, but then anyways, once you download it, yeah, it's broad, but it's from the kind of NDIA folks, but there's a whole sort of thing that, so if people want to get involved at what the state office is doing and all that sort of stuff, is here. Yeah.
I'm sure the Office of Broadband will host a webinar when they kind of have their ducks in a row on a lot of this. So
yeah, there's a lot. I mean, this is, and this sort of stuff, a lot of might look, familiar to people in this program. Like I said, Illinois is kind of ahead of the game, but they have all this kind of information, which is partially what you all have been doing. So all that to say, there's still more money coming. So it's important to stay in the loop with what the state of Illinois Office of Broadband is doing. Yeah.
So we're going to put all of these links into the email that Nancy sends following this webinar. So don't feel like you can take your time looking at all of that. Thank you, Robbie.
good. Thanks, Robbie. That's really all I have for today in terms of content and information. Any other thoughts or concerns or questions about what's going on in your communities?
Yeah, I do have one.
Thanks, Nick.
I don't know how many people on the call are with the county or city or municipal government. To some extent, we're sort of passive observers because a lot of this is flowing through the state. or other entities. But, you know, with our broadband strategy in Harvey, I think we've tried to take advantage and be less passive and more active. But one of the things that's in our toolbox is that we control land use with, you know, zoning, of course, and land use regulation more generally. So I think as we look forward, you got to figure out if you're going to work with cities and counties, how do you maximize their existing tools and orient it towards more of a broadband direction? So that's when I mentioned this, you know, Harvey Lofts deal. We have a 51 unit building going up, breaking ground hopefully in June. You know, that's where we're using some of our existing tools, but orienting it in a broadband direction. And we'll continue to do that. And that's, by the way, that's a TIF, partially TIF finance. So that's how allows us to have some negotiating leverage for things like broadband. But I would think, you know, with other cities and counties, they could do similar things. The other thing that occurs to me is most cities and villages, I'm not sure about counties, have comprehensive plans. And that's another tool because that's an opportunity. That's really the strategic plan for a city or village. And that's where we want to integrate broadband tactical approaches into our broader comp plan. We just got awarded on Monday a grant from CMAP. Some of you might be familiar with CMAP. And there's other grantors out there that give monies to cities, villages, counties for similar planning. And I think that's going to be important to actually integrate broadband into our comprehensive plan. So that's exciting. But something that's pretty much been never really thought about before. Most times, if you've seen comp plans, whether it's Evanston or Skokie or Schaumburg, wherever, they tend to focus on other things like the zoning, the land use regulation, transportation assets, things like that. So we are kicking off this new comp plan, but we'll definitely continue to think about ways to address broadband and the digital divide.
You know, Nick, that's such a great point to look at this holistically, you know, because if you're going in transportation, you can look at broadband. If you're looking at new development, you can look at broadband. If you're, you know, all of that stuff, it just cannot be siloed. That's exactly right. Go ahead, Al. I cut you off.
So Nick, can I ask a question about a TIF? So we have a new residential TIF. Is there opportunity within that residential TIF to include broadband?
Yeah, 100%.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's a TIF eligible cost. The thing you have to do now that you have this TIF, you got to take the next step and find partners to do deals within the boundaries of your TIF. I'm sure you'll get some interest going forward because it's going to be a tool you have for the next 23 years.
Correct. And it's probably going to be some of our higher level value homes going into this residential development.
Exactly. There you go.
Thanks, Nick.
You bet.
Good. Well, thanks, everyone. Lauren, good luck on your conference.
Yeah.
Very quickly, I just want to, you know, shout out respect to Benton Institute, not really just for putting this together, but really this idea of having this, you could say, Illinois-wide strategy, right? I think that, you know, one of the things that always gets talked about is this, you know, kind of, you could say, gulf between, you know, places like Chicago, south side of Chicago, and what's going on in these like smaller communities. And I know we have some common interest. You know, I know we have some things that we could definitely, you know, collaborate on, work on together. For instance, the whole affordability issue. I'm sure that is an issue in smaller communities, just like it is here on the south side, right? So we, you know, it was great to be in this forum with people from, you know, basically communities that I could get into the car and drive to in a few hours, but, you know, in terms of how we live every day, seem like they're, you know, on the moon. Do you know what I mean? And so really thanks to Benton Institute for just, you know, putting the frame around this, right? And little tip, Casey and Kyle, if you're on the call, if you want to try to promote, you know, access or whatever in your community, you need to get Kyle on a radio commercial or something. Doesn't he like have a broadcaster's voice? Really, you could just listen. You could listen to him talk, you know, nursery rhymes, and it would be compelling. Really. So if you're, you know, that's what I would thought as a tip for you guys.
You're too kind. Appreciate that. Actually, luckily, the small radio station we have here in the county is my side gig. So you're a fortune teller.
Oh, that is too funny. Well, you and Robbie, I always think of as having it's the basso profundo voices, you know, right? Exactly.
Well, I have a face for radio, so.
I second that. Yeah. No, Lauren, all kidding aside, I really appreciated your input on the call here. And I like how you framed that about, on the surface, we would think our communities are so different, but there really are similar things, similar concerns, regardless of population or demographic or whatnot. There are lots of similarities.
I think that's right.
Yeah, and
Thank
we
you
need,
so
and we need
much.
really, and we need to connect and work through some of that stuff. You know, link arms if
Yeah.
we're marching to
Yep.
Springfield or DC or online on these calls, right?
Yeah, and I think, you know, guys, just from a larger political perspective, you know, there are a lot of federal policymakers who like to describe the problem as rural deployment and urban affordability, but it is not that black and white. And that's what you're trying to point out, Lauren. There are affordability issues, there are literacy issues, there are device issues, there are even access issues that cross over. And, you know, I so appreciate, Lauren, you saying that. And thank you very much. That's been the whole part of the program, is not to see this as Chicago versus everybody else, because that's certainly a lot of the times the way this is put together. But I appreciate that.
Aren't you guys tired of that? We're all just tired of that.
I know, it's a divider.
From us.
Yeah, no,
it's not our idea to have that divide.
Yeah, I agree.
I know when we first got our applications, we said, oh, we got Flanagan over here and South Shore here, and then Mercer over there and Palatine. What a whole range of places. So
right, exactly. But it's great. Thank you so much, guys. And Bill, I really appreciate these alumni meetings. It's great to catch up. Many of you have joined other programs and we're still working with you. And we just want you to always feel free to reach out to us and tell us what you're doing, to stay involved. And Bill's right, you know, the state is going to be calling for the kind of people raising their hands and collaborating, getting involved in writing these bigger efforts. You know, they say you have 30 days once the state writes the plan to get your input in, but I'm hoping that the state looks at that writing process as a time to give input throughout and talk about personal stories and, you know, get your 2 cents in here to make sure that the funds are spent well. And just going back to what Nick was saying, you know, we introduced the idea for you all to know about the federal programs because there are matches required for the state funds, and you can go to the Fed money to try to do that. You could obviously go to local funds to try to do that, but there are lots of different ways to cobble together the money that is needed. And so that's why we go to the trouble of trying to show you that there are billions available, and we want to make sure the money is spent well, you know, that we get to, as Congressman Clyburn said at our DC event, that, you know, everybody in 4 to 5 years is connected. Now we have supply problems, you know, labor problems. We get this. We just heard from Marty and Roseanne, but the point is to keep our noses down and get this done. good resources. Okay, guys.
Thanks,
Bill,
everyone.
thanks again for organizing everybody and leading a great discussion. Talk soon. Bye.
Thank you.